Hi, I'm Richard FIRTH, CEO of MIP Holdings. We've been invited to talk at the EBnet conference. Our topic, what does customer experience mean in the digital world? We will talk a little bit about digitizing your administration platform, socializing your administration platform, the impact of PAPIA on the digital strategy, and how does omni-channel communications from your customers impact your business. Looking forward to seeing you at the conference. Follow me. Hi, I'm Richard FIRTH, Chairman and CEO of MIP Holdings. MIP are a software engineering business that delivers cloud-based policy, member, and lending administration platforms. We play in a number of verticals: the healthcare insurance space, the individual life insurance and risk space, the group life and risk space, employee benefits, which we're talking about today, and then the lending space. And I mention this because as a technology company and our drive for digitizing platforms, we realized that the digital strategy is very similar for each one of these verticals. So what we did was we took 40 of our engineers out and we centralized them in a team to build centralized capabilities for all of these units. And it's this that I want to talk about today, just in terms of what we've done to enable digital capabilities. What we also landed up doing was creating a new team of industrial engineers. And we find it important that process becomes very important in automation, and having the right skills to drive process and automation will become important for your businesses out there as well. Data is going to play a bigger and bigger role. Actually, last year at the EBnet conference, I spoke about data collection and making sure that you collect data immediately. So obviously, real-time data is fundamental to an automation and AI strategy going forward. And then finally, we have another unit now that purely uses this platform, not in the financial services space, to modernize and digitize companies out there outside of South Africa. But I think an important fundamental was that didn't matter what we did, the digital strategy was similar for each one of these financial service units, and I think they will impact every one of you out there. MIP currently look after about 22 million beneficiaries. We're a level 2 BE contributor. We have about 450 odd strong team, of which 75% are software engineers. And finally, we run MIP on the triple P or quadruple P principle. I want to refer you to the slide by McKinsey. The automation potential of work activities varies by sector. And I just want to point out in the middle here, you can see that they view financial services, the capability to automate almost 44% of your processes in the new digital age. So when we look at that, it's kind of 50% midway through all the sectors that they've looked at, and I think very important. So we're just highlighting how MIP are going to run this. Our fundamental strategy was from moving from measuring a service level to managing a customer's experience. And I know everyone knows digital strategies and customer experience go hand in hand. We also introduced a new word, and we kind of call it to our CEOs socializing rather than digitizing, because we find that people understand much more when we talk to them and say, listen, guys, we are actually going to socialize all of your back-end business processes and data with your customer. Because digitize there's so many connotations to a digital strategy. But if we talk about a very simple concept of socializing every back-end process with your customer, it's actually fairly easy to understand. And I want to show, just in terms of a slide here, the old mechanism of capturing some data into a system. Let's just say it's a new member getting captured into the system. The system will do something, and the consumer will receive an email with a welcome pack and their product. And really, that was how processes used to work in the non-digital era. So you've got your new business entry, you've got your product rules and pricing interacting with that input, and then finally, let's just say a confirmation email was sent to the customer. But in the social world now, the customer gets that email and they read it and they might have an issue with something on that email, and they will choose the channel of their choice. They're not going to click reply on the email. They might go into WhatsApp, for example, and say, okay, via WhatsApp, I'm going to query the number that you've given me. And in that query, the machine now needs to say, can I answer that query automatically? Or do I need to assign a specific staff member? Now, when we talk about assigning a staff member to the query, we don't want the customer to go from this team to that team to the next team before we understand who can actually service the customer. It needs to be a one-click move. So the intelligence in that assigning is fundamental in our world. We want to be able to assign the customer intelligently to a person or a machine process that can answer that query. And then the response will go back on WhatsApp, not via email through the original channel. So if you understand this, this circle can go round and round and round as many times as the customer wants it to go round until we've satisfied all the queries they have with our original interaction. And to digitize this process is fundamental. But now understanding that we have this omni-channel communication mechanism where we have to check how we're going to talk to the customer. So let's go back to that example and just say, in round one, the customer goes to the website and captures their new business onto your website to say, oh, I want to join the company. So on our timeline, we will actually capture that data into some form of timeline that will track the channels that the customers come in on. What's also important is that the data is not stored on the website. Or if they come in on social media, let's just say Facebook, and congratulate us on our service or our website, we want to store that data inside the platform. They might have given us some additional information via social media, and a great example just yesterday, as I record this session, from 6 o'clock last night to 1 o'clock this morning, Facebook and WhatsApp were down. So if you're depending on those platforms to hold your communication and your customer phones in and wants your POPIA compliant information, you actually can't give it to them if you've stored that data in the channel that the customers come in. So it's very important to communicate via the channel, but store that data in the platform. Likewise, the mobile app, we want to be able to track the app. The customer goes into our mobile app, they go to a menu and they download their benefit statement. We know what time they did that. We know what document they're looking at. They might want to then come in via conversational AI or WhatsApp and communicate with something they saw in the benefit statement. And if they did not get the right answer there, when they call the call center's actually got access to the entire chain of events that have taken place and the data that correlates to what took place there. As a matter of fact, in this scenario, when the call center agent answers the call, the system should know that the call is actually about a benefit statement because we know the client looked at their benefit statement on their app just 5 minutes ago. So that type of intelligence is going to become very important in how we service the customer in this omni-channel or bi-directional world that we live in. We also talk about a customer's alter ego, my alter ego. And the alter ego is anything from a watch to a mobile app, or even to chat now, because we're seeing that a large portion of your customer base is no longer going to download the app. They're actually happy to be serviced via conversational AI or chat. So that mechanism of using WhatsApp as a way to question and answer an organization is fundamental. And those questions and answers, a percentage of the population will, yes, 25, 30, 40% of people will have a mobile app, and it makes it much easier to converse with a customer. But understanding that if they're using a mobile app or they're using conversational AI such as or WhatsApp chat features, these chat features are 24/7. They no longer tell the customer, please phone us in the morning or please chat to us in the morning. And the customer's expectation of delivery is completely different to even the days of email. If a customer sent an email inbound, a customer generally doesn't mind a response from an email within 4 to 8 hours. But a query via WhatsApp, the customer actually expects that response within minutes. And your whole infrastructure has to facilitate how we're going to respond to this customer. Another note that I just wanted to add from the McKinsey report, that frontline professionals will continue to play a critical role in reaching customers. So insurers must embrace the integration of physical and digital channels. In financial services, we are not going to move to a place where the customer is only digital. That in terms of complex transactions, you will always find there will be human interaction with our customer. And this is quite important because you understand now that your digital channels and your customer-facing channels have to be in sync 100% with each other. And it doesn't matter how many resources you have. And we're finding this in many organizations that we go to, that you've got your WhatsApp, oh, I've got SMS, and I've got email. But actually, the content in each one of those channels is stored in the channel. It's not stored centrally. So if you don't know how to use them, it'll never be enough. You'll continue to put more and more architecture and infrastructure in place, but it's never going to get you to that real digital world that you're looking for. So just in terms of the digital stack that MIP pieced together to cater for this, so it's really about the objects that we built to service the customer. And these objects are intended to sit between the mobile app or the conversational AI and the back-end administration system. You have to have these components to drive that social or relationship mechanism with your customer over the platform. So number one, we look at digital workforce management. And it just so happened became very important because during COVID times, most of our staff are working from home. Do we know what they're doing? Do we know what service level they're offering? And do we know when we can route a customer in an inbound call directly to your staff member's house because they're working in the call center? Not only route the call, but we need to route some of the data that are the examples that I've given you beforehand. So workflow, case management. We've changed the name of workflow. We call it business process socialization rather than business process management. Because with every business process you design now into the system, you've got to look how you incorporate the customer into the process. Rules engines are becoming fundamental. You don't want to reduce in a complex world of change and agility. You don't want to reduce every one of your rules to code or programming code. We want to be able to use new dynamic rules engines that allow the administration platform and the front ends to communicate rules that are succinct and operate the same. It doesn't matter where your platform, where you're driving through. The My Media module is a fundamental component because media is becoming really important in our lives. As you understand, an inbound email holds a whole lot of metadata on the email that a system can actually go in and interrogate. A human won't see that data, but we know, for example, a document sent in via email, even the document, we know when it was created, we know where it was created. There's a whole bunch of metadata there that can begin to automate the workflows and the processes inside your organization. Also, being able to store media, because Papier is very, very particular in how you store and how you offer media back to your customer as and when they want it. Bot technology is becoming quite important. For example, that inbound email might be your customer sending you a copy of their new ID document. A bot is able to open an email. A bot is able to open an attachment on an email. A bot can read the email and see there's a barcode there. The bot can actually read the barcode and automatically then say, this is an ID number. I need to go and do a verification of personal details at Home Affairs. So before anyone in your organization actually sees that email, there's a whole lot of data we've actually gathered around the email that no longer needs to be captured because it's sent in, it's verified, it's owned by your customer, and the data is relevant for the process that it's now going be executed within. Communications is also quite important. We actually end up spending a lot of time, and I think the conundrum for most of our organizations, we moved away from SMSs because sending an SMS to every customer every day became very, very expensive. And up until recently, WhatsApp was a great communication mechanism, but now with WhatsApp for Business, it's becoming expensive. You're paying per message. So we've had to build mechanisms where the system will arrange the messaging. And only when we need to talk to the customer will we actually move the process out into WhatsApp. Otherwise, an internal communication WhatsApp function will happen in the platform and only communicate with a customer outbound. But any form of comms now can now go down that channel. For example, you WhatsApp, the benefit statement is no longer emailed to the customer. They will choose the channel by which you want to communicate. The My Timeline component, I went through that earlier on, just the timeline, making sure that we know which channel was used, when it was used, and the timeline knows what data was collected during the usage of that channel. We also built a couple of other components in our platform that deal with connection. So being able to connect to third-party systems. In the digital world, the customer's not prepared to wait. So if we need to reach out to the bank, we need to reach out to the broker, or we need to reach out in our world to HR systems, we need to have mechanisms where we can interface and integrate to those HR platforms. We can receive and we can send data to the platforms. I see down the line that why shouldn't your benefit statement be available, your EB benefit statement, your pension benefit statement, available on your payroll system instead of having to come out of your environment and log into an administrator's platform, for example. So the work of a super app is slowly but surely taking form. Call center functionality. Yes, call center functionality has been around a long time, but it's changed in terms of how we need to integrate process and procedure into the call center operations. Also, our staff are no longer sitting in the bricks and mortar, the buildings that we built. They're sitting at home. So how does the system manage these people and know that they are delivering the service level the company is expecting at any point in time? It brings me on to my last real point that I want to, second last point, dynamic scripting and questionnaires. The system being able to script the responses that we want from our staff members. So a call center agent no longer has a free rein in terms of what they're saying. They're actually going to read off a script in terms of response to a customer's question. So the company or the administrator can be sure what's being said is what we prepared to commit to. And then finally, we built gamification because in this new world, we have to incentivize people for the immediacy of their responses, if that makes sense. So gamification in our world, we are able to measure the top call center agent for the last 15 minutes. We've integrated the system with ShopRite checkers. We can issue that person with a bar of chocolate or a bag of a Weezer immediately to say, well done, you've been the top agent, you've answered this many calls. Also, leadership boards to show the teams, because they're working in disparate places, to show the teams how the individual, how they're performing in the team structure, which is a pretty lonely place, I think, sometimes for lots of people. But then we get into the mobile app and the integration spaces out there from the system. The last little piece, I did touch on it last time, is big data. Big data analytics help organizations harness their data and use it to identify new opportunities. That in turn leads to smarter business moves, or the fact that we collect transactional data, more efficient operations, or process information being stored against those transactions. Higher profits, the storing of all financial data, and then happier customers, or social or customer experience data that is stored in real time. So all of those components of data actually give us a fundamentally different view of how we need to treat the customer. But I picked up just these three final points. The future tells us in order to be successful, you have to have great predictions. Great predictions begin with one imperative. You need a lot of quality data. And finally, data needs to be online in real time in order to not only execute predictions, but implement them in time to make a difference or change outcomes. And I think that last point is really important, that all of this process information is no good unless we are able to, in the very near term, interact with that process to change the outcome of the process. So the way we see it, in terms of a digital roadmap, you have to look at business process socialization, go back to all your workflows and all your processes and redesign them for the customer's interface. Where is the customer notified? Where do I remove the supervisor from the role? Because we don't need the supervisor anymore, because we can actually get to the customer to make the call that the traditional supervisor used to make on behalf of the customer. So very important. The next piece is robotic process automation. Where can you implement automation in your processes that smooth that customer experience? The collection of big data to drive prescriptive analytics, etc. And then finally, MIP are not here yet, but the real utopia is artificial intelligence. But we cannot get there until we've gone through all of these processes here. So I can see there's a lot of you thinking, wow, how much work have we got to do to really get to the world of AI, or even the world of true automation and improving that customer journey. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time and look forward to seeing you in the other digital channels in the conference. Cheers.